biohacking, performance, mastery, mindset. This is a show about getting better every single day. The Hack Life with Joel Levin. Welcome to the show. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the show. This is a real special episode, and really going, how do I say, not away from what I've always been doing and putting on the show with my guests. I've always been bringing on guests that are disruptive, that are doing something different in their industry, right? Whether it's be health, whether it's mindset, whether it's mastery, all of these things you're going to start to compile by listening to this podcast day over day. Hopefully, by the end of the year, 365 days later, you can say, hey, I stacked on some new skills. I became 1% better week after week, and that compounds into something. And that's what I really hope for this show to do and to bring out to the world. And so, I got connected. For many of you who don't know, Dr. Pete Goldman, he's an amazing healer of our time, and he trains and teaches a lot of other healers and practitioners of how to do some of the same things that he's doing. And if you go back to, I believe, episode 2 or 3 with Dr. Pete, you can listen to that episode. It was a really, really popular episode where we talk about just how I was injured. He's treated any and every MMA superstar you can imagine, professional athletes, and he's got some amazing testimonials of bringing them back when every other doctor said, you won't be able to play football or your sport for like another year based on your injury, and Dr. Pete is bringing them back in 3 weeks. Pretty remarkable. So he's got numerous testimonials like that. It's not just one. And so Dr. Pete, though, he's also, and so I have 2 episodes with Dr. Pete, so go back and check out those. They're really, really popular episodes. On that note, though, Dr. Pete is a martial artist. He's always been a martial artist as a kid in Kyokushin karate and full contact sports, and he's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu and karate, and he's fought professionally, a very, very good athlete. And, Dr. Pete, in his time, though, he's such an avid learner and reader, and he was reading about ki through this old master, Toishi Kohei. And he kept reading these books, and he's going to talk about it in today's episode, but he was reading these books over and over again and getting so much from them. And when he would go and meet some of these ki or chi, masters and that were doing Aikido and some of the principles that they were talking about, he felt like they were fake. And he felt like none of this stuff is practical. None of it works in real life. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's a great thing to talk about, but try applying that in real life. Like, it doesn't work. And then he stumbled upon Sensei Maida, who's going to be on today's podcast. And he felt the difference. He was like, whoa, this is completely different. This is real. So again, I know when we think about ki masters, or, you look at, and we talk about this in the podcast, but we talk about like these fake, practitioners, and there's tons. If you just YouTube ki master, right, you can see it all over the internet. You can see people, an MMA fighter versus ki master, and he's just getting obliterated, right? But what Sensei Maida, what I really like, and this is a great episode, you should probably watch this one on YouTube because there's a lot of visual demonstrations that are going to happen. This is an in-live interview, which I'm just really happy I haven't done an in-live interview in a while. And so this is a really cool episode. And the principles of ki, and these principles are universal, and how you can actually apply them to your daily life. And you're going to hear how he applies ki to the people that he trains, and how it applies to being a better husband, being a better father, being a better parent. And he goes into these max facilities, these prisons, and helps prisoners because he wants to teach them these principles so that when they come out, they will have a better understanding of life and be able to coordinate that mind-body connection better in their own life, right? This is an amazing episode. It's really one of those special episodes that I had to like listen to a couple times and just was like, wow, like there's just so much stuff in there. And if you just look over and glaze over once, you're going to miss it. So I strongly urge everyone to probably watch this episode on YouTube. It's going to be there. But if you can't, just try to take in some of the principles of ki. He's an amazing person. You can go check out Sensei Maida if you're in California. He is in the Albany area. And what an amazing soul and what an amazing gift in this episode. And, thank you, Dr. Pete, for bringing making this connection happen. So really cool stuff. last but not least, before we get into the episode, as you guys know, most of you who are my, avid listeners, I have, I do health coaching, and I help a lot of people lose weight in 60 days. And we do it from a holistic perspective. We don't count macros. We don't do these special diets. We don't do any of that. And really, when you look at some of the metabolic things going on, right, it keeps coming out over and over again. We're seeing it with the C word. We're seeing it with viruses and all that stuff. People that are most affected by those things are they have metabolic issues. That's just the fact. So if you're looking to get healthy and get in better shape and you're a busy professional and you feel like you don't have the time, I can help you. So reach out to me. One of the best ways you can reach out to me is just DM me on Instagram at Joel Evan Coaching, or shoot me an email, info@JoelEvanCoaching, and I'd love to connect with you and see if we can help. Cool? All right, guys, without further ado, Sensei Maida and Dr. Pete Goldman. All right, hey, I am here with Dr. Pete Goldman and Sensei Maida. Did I say that right? Sensei Maida.
Perfect.
It's Italian.
Perfect. It's Italian.
As you said. This is going to be an amazing episode. So I'll do a quick intro, and then Dr. Pete, take it away. We're super blessed to be here with Sensei Maida. I have just gotten to know him through Dr. Pete. Everybody know Dr. Pete. Dr. Pete's been on the show twice now. Interview number 3. How could we resist? But Dr. Pete does a lot of training with the Zone School, chiropractic, overall just general healing. So anybody that's trying to learn how to become a better healer, they need to go check him out. He gets the best results. Just look him up. And here's the thing, though. The reason we're here with Sensei Maida is that Dr. Pete found him and uses some of the principles in some of your teaching in the Zone School. And I've got to see a couple of videos, and what he does is incredible in terms of, and I think you'll get into it, but he's known as a Chi or Key Master.
I wouldn't call it a master, but yeah,
Okay.
I'm training very diligently.
Some of the things that I've seen you do, and we'll get deep into it, of course, is just I've seen you do some amazing things just using your Chi or Ki to maneuver and manipulate people, and it looks almost fake if you're just watching it on TV. And we all know there's those martial artists out there that they use like dim mak or whatever, like they use the touch of death, and or the Ki masters they do hiya kia, right, and then like, the person drops, and we're like, it's just fake. But having somebody like Dr. Pete say, no, this guy's the real deal, that means something. And so that's why we're here today. So that was a long-winded intro, sorry, but welcome to the show, and I can't wait to learn more. Dr. Pete, so tell us how this all started.
So let me say a couple things. So I have a extensive martial arts background. I was a Kyokushin fighter. I trained with Shigeru Oyama, who's considered the greatest Kyokushin fighter ever. I was there 6 days a week, 2+ hours a day. I was fighting the best fighters in the world in that style in the early 90s. And it's, if anyone knows about Kyokushin, the name says it all. In fact, in Japanese, Kyokushin actually means the ultimate truth. I don't know if it really is, but the founder must have thought it was because he called it that. But anyway, it is very rough stuff. Very, 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 very rough stuff. So I'm familiar with that. And at the time, I went to Thailand and I trained. I wanted to fight some Thai boxers. I mean, I've experienced that. Then later on, when I was in my 30s, I started to jiu-jitsu, and I got a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so I'm familiar with having to fight in the ground. So I'm familiar with different martial arts. Now, I picked up a book once by Toei Sensei, Koichi Toei, his name. I just picked it up in a secondhand Japanese bookstore. And I was like, and I read the book. I'm like, man, this is one of the best books I ever read. That was it. I wonder if I could learn this. But it said Aikido, and I was like, oh, Aikido, that's the worst. Like, what a joke. I'm like, Aikido is the most pathetic excuse for self-defense, around. I mean, but I thought, maybe people join Aikido schools to, meet friends and get in shape and have community. So I didn't think it was terrible. I just thought, right. I just thought if they thought it was for self-defense, they were kidding themselves severely. So I said, Aikido was kind of disappointing. So then I started, maybe there's something to this because this looks so good. And then I read that Toei Sensei was challenged by some judo guys and some other guys, and I think in California at one time and in Hawaii, and he was beating everyone up. I mean, whatever. So he was throwing these guys around who were hardcore, high-level judo guys. So I said, well, this is obvious. It seems to be real. But I didn't understand the difference between what we'll probably find out later about Aikikai, which is a lineage of O-Sensei, which is stuck around but is really far from what the founder taught, to Ki Society, which Toei Sensei, who was the top student, who was only 10th dan ever given by Sensei while he was alive. Kind of made his own thing, which is Kises. I didn't even understand any of that stuff. I just thought it was like, oh, it's Aikido. So I got this Aikido book. So I started going to all these Aikido dojos, not to storm the dojos and beat everyone up, but just to learn, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, it was very disappointing because I didn't go there to kind of make fun of them. I went there to learn, and I was like, I walked out just horrified. It was just, I mean, the stuff I can't do it justice how pathetic it was. I mean, verbally, I cannot verbally tell you how pathetic it was. So I was like, man, this is really disappointing. I guess I'll go back to my Koichi Tohei book and just read it because that's all I could do, and I'll just do my own training.
When you said it was pathetic, is it just that you're like, it's just not practical? Like that would never work. Like
exactly.
I would punch you in the face before you did this twisty lock.
Yeah, I'll do whatever I want to before you do this, or while you're doing it, or trying to do it. Yeah. So I kind of gave up, and then lastly, somehow I was like, oh, there's actually a living disciple of Tohei Sensei who's near me. So then I went to his class.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember when I sat in the class, he called one of his black belts up and demonstrated something, and it looked fake. I was like 4 feet away. I'm like, oh my God, another adds like 10th on the list of this fake garbage, you know. Everyone seems really nice here, and I was like, it's probably good for exercise and community, and everyone's having a good time, but this is just ridiculous, and because it looks so fake. And then at some point, Sensei called me up, and I was like, in 1 second, I'm like, this is real. I knew in 1 second. I didn't have to feel it twice. I'm doing this long enough. I felt in 1 split second, like, this is real. And then I just signed up and started going. Now, when I first started going, I went more for just like the mental. I'm like, this is like good, it was like good mental, spiritual healing. I didn't even really care about the physical part because I was already in good shape and I already knew kind of how to fight. So I didn't really care about that stuff. And then over time, I saw that it could really be applied to anything in life, anything, healing, whatever. And on top of that, because I am, the friends of so many like elite level fighters, I was like, you got to come check this out. And I've brought several renowned fighters, and they can't deny it because when you feel it, it's just real, period. And I've had those experiences with them. And then as you mentioned, I am the founder of Zone School of Healing. The website is zonetechnique.com. Any chiropractor, doctor, or healer of any type, of course, can go to zonetechnique.com and join or do whatever they want. With that said, I actually thought that Sensei's teachings could benefit my students because Zone School has 1,000 students, 1,000 members and growing quickly. And Sensei's come to several of my lab events for my high-level, advanced students and taught stuff, and they loved it, which they can apply to their healing if they want or their life or whatever. So that's the context, and I think as you ask questions to Sensei, you'll get some really great answers, and he can even demonstrate a couple things, which I think would be worthwhile.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things before we get into with Sensei, I'm curious too. It's funny because I remember you mentioning the Koichi Kohei book in our first interview. You mentioned that, and I remember I asked you. I said, what's the type of exercise that you do? Like, obviously, you're like anybody. If you're watching on video, you can see Dr. Pete's in like really good shape. And I was like, hey, like, what are some things you do? And you're like, walking. And I'm like, and I'm thinking like, no, this guy's like a multiple black belts, and he does more than walking. And you're like, oh, I also do like a stretching routine in this book, and I put in the show notes and stuff for anybody that wants to see that first of it. And
actually, it's just in the book that this is a different great book by Koichi Tohei. That book he said in the book, if you want to have a strong body, do 3 things. And he said, walk a lot. And he showed a stretching routine, which takes like 4 minutes. Yeah. And, a shaking routine, which I'm sure Sensei can elaborate on. That was the whole list of the 3 things of a strong body. I was like, that's an easy list. So I just started, I always like to walk, but I started walking more, and that was that.
One last thing I wanted to ask you, though. I'm curious why you didn't give up at the first school that you went to.
Because simple, because the book was that great.
It was that great?
It was that great.
Okay,
I was like, I have to find this somewhere. And yeah, after like the 8th Aikido school, and again, I'm sure maybe Sensei will explain about like how Aikido started, about Tohei Sensei, what became Ki Society, why he made Ki Society, what was Tohei Sensei's interaction with O-Sensei's son to make that happen, why did most Aikido stay with Aikikai and what that's even become. But again, I didn't understand any of that. I just was like, it says Aikido on the thing. So
yes,
I was going.
That's how I would have been.
And as ridiculous, because that's the word I'll use, as all the experiences were, the book was so great. I mean, it's actually one of the 3 best books that I'd ever read. I have a good list of books. And I just wanted, maybe there's some way I could find this. So that's why.
Okay, on that note, you asked some really good questions. Answer all those. So, Sensei Maida, how... Okay.
Well, some of them I'm not going to answer because this is going on the net, right? So there's some political weirdnesses that I won't
whatever
answer.
You answer whatever you're comfortable with. But I'm curious, so we were talking a little bit just before the interview, but how did you stumble upon this amazing martial art? And you told me, like, not only did you stumble upon it, but you went to Japan and like dedicated many years of your life to like really understand it. So how did that come
Well,
about?
it's much less amazing than what Dr. Pete did. Dr. Pete really vetted things. He looked at it. He read a book. He went to different dojos. He tried to find it out. My mother is Japanese. She died when I was very young. I was looking for my Japanese heritage. So that's basically what it was. And I grew up in the South Bronx of New York. And so the first thing I discovered was Japanese, that I thought was Japanese, was an all-black dojo in Harlem, which I joined, and I started doing karate. Right? So I was the closest thing to Japanese they had ever seen.
You were the most Japanese looking
I was the
person
most Japanese.
compared to
We'd walk
anybody.
through
Yeah.
Harlem, and people would say, "Oh, there goes those karate guys. Who's that Japanese guy? He must be the teacher." Right. And I was the littlest, dumbest member of that group. So I had studied karate for a bit, and then when I was about 14, it was 1968 or something, 67, 68, I left New York to come to California because it was the summer of love and everything was happening out here, So I came out here, and one of my my brother's girlfriend was in an Aikido dojo. So I liked martial arts anyway, so I went to go to the dojo, but it was run by basically second generation American folks. Right, and they were doing what they were doing, but it, didn't impress me at all because I had done karate, and so I said, this is cool. I'll look at it. It's fun, and so I didn't train then Aikido. I trained karate, and then I came back to East Coast to do college, and then this woman who's named Leiko, she called me up and she said, "Hey, this new Japanese sensei just came from Japan, and he studied with Tohei Sensei, and he's just great." And he's got a lot of students, but he needs a deshi, which means he needs an apprentice. He needs a disciple. And you need a teacher in the worst way. So because she's my older sister, kind of, I went, okay. And so I came out and I saw him and I fell in love with this art because he was doing what he was saying. He said relaxed, he was relaxed. He said it's powerful, it was powerful. Whereas you don't see that often, especially in martial arts. They say relax, but they're tense and, they can beat you up, or they say they're strong and yet they're so weak. So this was a truism, and I said, okay, I'm going to follow this guy. And about 6 months after I trained with him, Tohei Sensei came to do his annual tour. And so he did about a 2-month, 3-month tour, and I followed him around during that time. And at the end of that tour, he said, this boy can come to Japan if he speaks Japanese fluently. Of course, I didn't speak any Japanese at all, but I said, yes, I do. And I moved to Japan and then became a uchideshi, meaning a live-in student, and studied with him. And it just changed my life. It was an amazing thing. So it's much more simple than me really trying to find this thing, which I respect highly. I just fell into it. And luckily, I fell into it because Tohei Sensei was a great teacher.
Yeah. So when the average person, though, what I find fascinating is the average person would have said, you obviously clearly didn't speak a lick of Japanese, and it would have been easy to be like, oh, well, that door just shut. Like, I wish I spoke Japanese, then maybe I could do this thing. But you were like, absolutely not. I'm going to figure out a way. I have to do that. Like, was that always something inside of you? Like this?
I don't know, but it turned out then I was going. There was no doubt about it in my mind. Whatever I had to lie or steal or whatever, I'm going. Because Tohei Sensei is just, my my original teacher was very good, but Tohei Sensei was just phenomenal. And I wanted to be him.
Yeah.
I don't want to be him now, because he's passed away for one.
Yeah.
But two, he was an old Japanese guy, and I don't want to be an old Japanese guy. I want to be me, right? But I really wanted to do what he did, which was to show that relaxation is stronger than tension. And a positive attitude is always better than a negative attitude. you always have a choice. People say to me, like, I don't know, maybe just because the way I am, they always go, "You're so happy all the time. You're smiling all the time." And I say, why not? You have a choice. You have a choice to be grim and nasty or to be happy. It's not that I don't look at the negative. I do look at the negative, but I treat it positively as much as I can. And this is what my teacher, I don't know if he's in, can you see Toy Sensei? Toy Sensei taught me mostly. Even language. Try to say no negative words. Try to be as positive as you can. And try to treat everybody without collision. Yeah, that's his art, and the reason I really like Aikido is because you can talk philosophy all you want, and when somebody's bending your arm and you got to show you're not colliding, and we'll do that if you want. Just start off the routine, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so why don't you stand up?
Oh boy.
And stand up. Right.
So should I take off my headphones?
No, it's not going to be violent.
Oh, okay.
At all.
I was looking for the violence.
Right, it's not going to be violent. So put your arm like this, make a fist, make your arm strong, and what I want Dr. Pete to do is bend this over here.
Okay.
Go ahead. Right. So he can bend it, right? He's a strong mother, right? So that's the strength one.
Yeah.
So what we usually think is that's one way to deal with something. The other way is the 60s routine, which is everything is cool and you're limp. So then bend the arm. So of course it bends,
Yes.
right? So there is a third way though, and we call this real relaxation. And one of the ways we teach this easily is this. You hold, you get ready to bend.
Okay.
Right. And then just shake my hand like, you don't have to hold it, just like you're connecting with me. Mm-hmm. Right, and then go. Now, I'm not supporting your hand.
No, you're not.
Right? So then
I don't even feel like I'm grabbing your hand.
Right,
Actually,
so do this.
I started to tense up, and then
Right.
you cued
Right.
me to actually relax more.
So relax more, you just connect to me, right? Relax more and do the bending, and then just let go. Right? So is this the same arm? Of course it's the same arm. And not only that, and we can show it, we'll show it this way since you're the interviewer, right? Because you might think that Dr. Pete's faking it, right? So hold my wrist and relax and hold this, and you're going to bend it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if I'm holding strong, go for it. You're right. That's pretty good. You're a pretty strong guy too. But if I relax, go ahead. Now, not only can you not bend, but keep bending. Not only can you not bend, but keep bending. But I can bend it. And not only can I bend it, but, right? Anybody can do this. Well, one can do this, let's say. Anyone can do this.
Yeah.
But you have to stay relaxed and do it. We have a guy in Santa Rita, maximum security. We'll call him Bubba for short.
Okay.
He bench presses 425. That's a lot.
It's not bad.
And and he can't bend my arm. And he's very appreciative of the fact that he knows that it's not my power, that it's something else. It's relaxation that does that. So that's essentially what we do. So you got a feeling of that.
Yeah.
Now the reality is, can you do that now though? Without the help, can you do that now?
That's the key, and I think
Absolutely,
I feel like I have to be mentally cued or primed to
Right.
Because otherwise, I think naturally, and I'm just speaking for myself, I'm naturally like a go,
Right.
alpha, like
Sure.
want to accomplish a lot of things, and so very task oriented and very rigid, I would say. And by saying all that, I'm telling you, I'm like, oh, like there's a lot of. So I would have to very much cue myself.
Now, I think that probably if it was a smaller person doing this, you could probably do it maybe. But if it's Dr. Pete trying to bend your arm,
Right.
you'll cue into this tension,
Yes.
things like that. And so what Toy Sensei had to do too was to challenge himself. Like in Japan, he was the master. So nobody really challenged him. They were students of his. But when he came to America, which was in 1953, he came to Hawaii, there were some big Samoan guys who didn't like Japanese guys. And they were doing martial arts too. They were doing judo. And he would say, bend my arm. And they'd go, you bet. Yeah. I'm going to bend it. And he had to up his game, I would say, to really be able to do it. So he said when he came back from America, he was a changed person in terms of how he could explain this and how he could do it. And so that helped me. Working in the jails helped me, and working with the police helped me, because they're not my students. I was teaching Berkeley PD, for instance. Maybe we can cut out the Berkeley in case
Sure,
somebody's
whatever, yeah.
watching. Right. Anyway, I was teaching Berkeley PD, and one of my students was a lieutenant in the, well, we'll call it the crash unit. You know, the break into the houses and get all the bad guys. And so they didn't want to train. He thought it was good for them, but they didn't want to train. So one of the sergeants came up to me, and I'll paraphrase because I don't curse. He said, "You think you can kick my butt?" And I said, no, that's not what I'm teaching at all. I definitely don't teach that, but I know you can't kick mine. And so he went, okay, let's train. You know, he liked that answer, and because that's not my goal, is to kick anybody's butt at all, right? So anyway, I hope this helped. This little demonstration helped.
Okay, so that was amazing. Yes, I felt it.
Right.
I felt that connection. It's very subtle. I'm curious though, now that I'm thinking about it, anybody watching this would say, okay, that's great. Beautiful. You know how to not bend arms and stuff. And I can see them saying, well, great. How does that affect me in a self-defense situation, in the sense that, like, I'm assuming, or like, for example, Koichi Tohei, when a judo guy, right? So the judo guy goes, you know, they want their grips and stuff, they're going to go grab, and then they're going to toss him, maybe. Right. So how does that translate, this understanding of
we would say unbendable arm, which is able to bend, right? I showed you it could bend, right. Even though. Then it's unbendable shoulders, an unbendable finger, an unbendable legs, an unbendable torso, right? So that it can move, but it's very stable and it's connected. Mm-hmm. So Tohei Sensei, when he first came to the United States, he got invited to do a demonstration by I forget the doctor's name, but it was a doctor, it's in the books, right, who invited him out because he liked Aikido. He thought it was really great. And so Tohei Sensei demonstrated at a tournament, at a judo tournament. And Tohei Sensei didn't understand English well. And so the doctor said in the break while they were doing the demonstration, he said, Tohei Sensei will now take on all 4 of the champions of their weight class at the same time. And Tohei Sensei really didn't understand what he was talking about. So they were all lined up, and the doctor said, go. And they all charged him, and he tossed them all around without them ever touching him. Then he gained a lot of students from that. Yeah. So Hawaii became really a base of United States Aikido because everybody was impressed by how he did that. And he was talking at the same time. I mean, he wasn't out of breath. Yeah. So this is something that can be applied to martial arts, but I would say that the martial art techniques that we do are just another tool to see more clearly our reaction to potentially tension or collisionary situations. Mm-hmm. And it's a tool to see it. It's not a goal. We're not trying to be professional martial artists or self-defense people or any of that, right? At least from Tohei Sensei's viewpoint. Yeah. But we're using the techniques because it's a real clear indicator of whether you're relaxed or not, or whether you're colliding or not. So we'll do another one, and then we'll start talking. Okay. All right, so feet in natural posture, right? Good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a push, and don't get pushed over. But since I teach in maximum security prison, I have to say one thing. There's one rule, and that is don't hurt the sensei. Okay. Right. So this is not a challenge. No, right. No, nothing like that. Yeah. This is right. So what you're going to do is try to prevent yourself from losing your balance. Okay. Right? So you wouldn't call that a hard push.
No.
Right. No. Okay. So try something else.
Okay.
Without hitting the sensei.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so that didn't work either.
No, that didn't work either.
Right. So what I want you to do is this. Put your feet in natural posture. Come up off your heels a little. And stay up there a little bit. And then come down softly on your heels so that you don't rock back. Right. Like that. Very good. And just relax. Don't push against this. Just relax. Good. So now you can feel I'm pushing about triple right now. Right.
Way more
so
grounded.
Tense this up a little bit or resist a little bit, right? And it's right. So it's that, right? Mm-hmm. And now weight on forward and relax and don't resist. Just keep right there. Yes. Mm-hmm. Now I know he's pushing harder, but generally when we do this, you're trying to do like a science experiment where you're trying to push the exact same way so that you can see what the difference is. But everybody pushes harder. Yeah. So you can see that. Why do we tense up then?
Fear.
Right. When we know now, right, that just staying stable, right, will keep you more stable, right?
Yeah.
Rather than resisting it. Now, you know this, so even like, you can't turn around because you got this, but move your body around like this a little bit, right? And then but keep the same feeling and stop, but keep the same feeling of forward feeling and relaxed and stable. Yeah, so you didn't lose it, right? So you got it. Now I'm going to do one more test, and I'm not going to push any harder, okay? You ready? I'm not going to push any harder, I guarantee it.
I was anticipating that one.
Right, so what that means, that's not a bad thing, but what that means is that it's really not in you yet. You still think that this is stronger, right, rather than thinking that the other. So it takes practice, which is, I have a joke on my refrigerator. It says, that's why we asked you to pack a lunch and a change of clothes, because it's not going to take one lesson or two lessons. It's going to take a lot of training to stay relaxed when you might want to tense up, right? And it takes a lot. And so Aikido trains us in that. You do some martial arts, right?
I did Kaiju Kembo for a long time.
Right, but
like
you don't.
Kempo
But you don't do any like grappling.
I did jiu-jitsu
I met
with.
him at jiu-jitsu.
That's how we
Carlos.
met.
was
With
Carlos'
Carlos
student.
Sapone for
Okay,
4 years.
so this might interrupt your microphone, but maybe not. So you're going to go and choke.
Okay.
So if he's going to go and choke you, right, you're going to do something to prevent the choke, right? So you're tucking your chin, and you're pulling down on the arm, right? Right, but he's a strong mother.
Oh yeah.
So he's going to get in there, right?
crushing me, yeah.
He's going to get in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So now we're going to do this. He's doing this. I want you to touch here, not pull down, but no, don't pull down. Just bring it to your chest, like hug it to your chest. And even with this hand, hug it to your chest. Right, hug it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Good.
It's like 100 times stronger.
And I'm not even.
Right.
Not even like I wasn't even. I was kind of using your hand as a guidance.
Right.
I wasn't even doing it hard. I was
Right,
just
don't do
kinda
it hard because you don't want to hug yourself hard either,
Yeah.
you know? So you want to hug and really softly, and now he can't choke you. Now the other thing is that, and we notice, is that when people get choked, they tend to want to, especially jiu-jitsu people, they tend to want to tuck their chin in, which actually brings your throat closer to my hand, right? So if this is choking and you're touching, put your head up. Keep right.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
now it's not anywhere near even your throat.
Yes.
Right? But we do the opposite because of our practice, because of our training. We want to tighten up. So with practice, though, we can relate to potential collision in a totally different way. You ever stub your toe at night, you know, when you're walking through the house?
Oh, yeah.
Don't you blame the chair?
Yes.
Yes.
It's everybody's fault but mine.
It's everybody's fault but yours, right? And so that's a good testing thing. You stub your toe, you go, man, that hurts. You know, instead of blaming or instead of, you know, even getting angry at anybody, you know, you're the one that stubbed your toe. You probably left the chair there. I mean,
Most likely.
most likely, you know, but even if you didn't, still, why don't you look where you're going?
I just want to add one thing Joel asked about practicality, and of course this goes way beyond self-defense and things like that. But when I learned unliftable body from Sensei, which he probably can show with us now, it was a lot harder for guys to throw me. When I did jiu-jitsu against even judo guys, it was just harder for them to throw me because I was using those principles, and that came to mind when Joel asked about that.
Okay, we can do one more. Because
Yeah.
I do these a lot. I mean, I never have an interview where I'm just talking, although, as you can tell, I like to talk. Right? Right. Okay.
Must be the Italian side of you.
Well, yeah, because it's not the Japanese
It's
side.
definitely not the Japanese.
Right. Okay. So what we're going to do is this. First, tense your body up.
Me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just be tense.
Be tense. Right. And he's
I'm
going to.
lift you up.
So he can obviously lift you up. Right.
No,
right.
Without any.
Without any.
Yeah.
Right. So then do the 60s routine, which is like, you know, everything's groovy and spacey-wacy. Right. And you're going up anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So now remember the weight on the front part of the feet, right? And then what you're going to do is this. The shoulders won't go up. And if you need it, you can crazy glue your fingers to your thigh, crazy glue, which doesn't take pressure, by the way, if you've ever done crazy glue, right? It just touches and you're stuck, right? So you don't have to put pressure if you need it.
Okay.
But generally, just keep the shoulders connected to the body. Don't let them rise up on their own, okay? And keep it stable. Right. Now, here's the thing, right? Just to let you know, this person, we'll call him the uke person, right?
Yeah.
Is thinking he ain't lifting,
That's exactly what I thought.
right? He's thinking he ain't lifting, and that's why we do it with everybody. so that you understand that really it's somebody lifting. Now, both of us are heavier, but you can still feel the difference, right? So make yourself tense.
You can lift me if you
I
want.
can get it.
Right.
I can do it.
Right,
It might
and
be
so that's right,
yeah.
and lift him up. Right, so you can move them.
yeah.
Right, you can move them. That was pretty good. And now space out a little bit, and do the same thing. Right, so you can still move them around a little bit. Right. So now feet together, natural. Keep coordination, mind and body. Right, and do the same lift.
It's
Like
it's dramatically.
it's dramatically different, right? Now, I'd have to ask you, does his weight change?
No.
Because if I could change people's weights, I'd be a millionaire.
Yeah.
I'd go to Weight Watchers and make a fortune, right? So his weight didn't change, so what changed?
I mean, I would say his perception of his weight or his reality.
Well, that could be,
his
right? But it's
state.
basically how he dealt with your lift, which is a totally different thing. He dealt with calmness so that he couldn't be moved, or he dealt with tension or spaced out, and so he could be moved. And so we can equate this, of course, we can equate this to self-defense, but you can equate this to daily life, to personal relationships, to, when you're tense, you don't see things clearly. You're not stable. When you're spaced out, you don't see things clearly, you're not stable. When you're really relaxed, we call this relaxed completely, you're seeing things as clear as what they are, and you're the most stable. Now, this is not to say that nothing will lift you up. There's an elephant I know who can lift you up, right? And a forklift can lift you up. But you will be much more stable in comparison if you stay relaxed and calm. We'll call this keeping one point, keeping your center, than not.
Yeah.
Is that a good one? Yeah. Okay, so let's do another one. I love these, right?
I just want to add one thing, if it's okay. One thing I really appreciated about this teaching is, like, when I was in New York back in the day, I knew this guy who was like the grandmaster of like V-Jitsu. It's like this very rough style. So he was like, "Oh, Dr. Pete, you should train with us." And they had a thing on their wall. It's a huge sign. It says like harmony, love. It was the most violent place I've ever been to. I mean, I was prepared for it because of my background, but it was insane. Like, I mean, I don't mind if you're violent, but I don't know what that post. It said like, V-Jitsu te, like love, harmony. So that's one extreme of just, I don't know what that is. Then there's this other extreme that I came across a couple times, almost like some Tai Chi. Not that Tai Chi is not great, but some Tai Chi, it's so spaced out. They're not even relaxed. I don't know what it is. Like, but what I learned from this is relaxation is strength. It's not the, love and harmony and, stamp on each other's heads. It's not like the Tai Chi, not that all Tai Chi is like this, but the kind I saw where you're like half asleep. It's this, relaxation is strength. It really is. And then it's easy to say it or read it in a book, or you're like, relax. But in the relaxed completely context, you're like, wow, relax. And you can test it, because if I'm doing jiu-jitsu, I'm like, oh, look, I'm fighting these same guys, and I'm relaxed, and look how much stronger I am. So that's one of the multiple things. Now, in the greater scheme of things, that might be the crumbs off the table. Like, who cares? There's so many bigger applications. But because you asked that question, I can tell you that.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, he understands this really much clearer than many of my students do, because he's had this experience of other things and not just just doing this. So we'll do one more. Put this foot forward, and put this hand forward, and hold here, right? And you can resist, but don't move your feet, right? And he's going to move you.
Raise
them
up?
No, just push them.
I'm going to push them out. Okay, got it.
Right. So of course he can push you back.
Yeah.
Right. So try something different. Right, so that's sort of limpier one, right?
Limpy.
Right. So try something different. Anything on your plate, right? So okay. So now
find the balance between.
So now just relax and shake my hand as if I'm giving you a new Tesla. Look that way, right? For free, right? Okay, go ahead.
No.
And you're not gripping me.
No, I'm not at all.
You're not really hanging on to me. It's just sort of like Dumbo and the Feather. Disney, maybe you're a little young for this.
No, I got Dumbo. I got some Dumbo books at my house, actually.
Right, well, you got kids maybe.
Yeah.
Right, so Dumbo had a feather, and the feather convinced Dumbo that Dumbo could fly. But of course, Dumbo didn't need the feather to fly, right? Obviously, because the feather disappeared, but he could fly. So this is the same. You actually don't need me, but you need the idea. Relax, 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 and look that way, look past, right? And then do test again. Right, very good. So I'm much more stable, You want to try it with, let's try it with Dr. Pete, since what usually happens is that this person usually says, well, he's just setting this one up, man. You know, we got some stock in this thing, right? So first tense body, right? And so you're going to use your whole body and right, there you go. Excellent. So you can move him. And limpy wimpy. Right. Good. And just extend big up on the front part of your feet. Right, go. Yes. Right, and he's using less power and less tension and less calories. I was teaching. This might help. I was teaching it was actually Maryland, but it was from Virginia, an organization from Virginia, and we were teaching mostly law enforcement. But we were teaching also, some people came in suits, and we said, oh, what department are you from? The guy goes, Department of the Navy. And we go, oh, what do you do? And he says, can't tell you. And I laughed and I said, no, what do you do? He goes, can't tell you, right? And so they were practicing with us, and then in between the class, when we had a little break, they were doing push-ups. So I went over to the guy and I said, look, I can teach you how to do more push-ups, probably 20% more push-ups. The guy says, great. And I said, but it'll build less muscle. And he looked at me and he went, nah, I don't want that. Because they're doing this to build muscle, right? But I could teach you how to do that where you're not using so much muscle. But they didn't want that. They wanted to build muscle. So this is not building muscle. This is actually using your body very efficiently. And if you dig in, you're going to get pushed over. If you tense, if you fight back, you're going to get pushed over. But if you relax, you're going to be the most stable. So I think you can see how this relates to martial arts, but also how it relates to daily life, that you don't have to push your issue. You just keep your stability. And we have to see it from the other's perspective. I have to see where you're coming from. And usually we say that like if we're saying this as a, 60s thing, because I grew up in the 60s, I went to Woodstock. That lets you know how old I am. I went to Woodstock, right? And so, this niceness that everybody is, but if you get pushed over from it, right, then it's not stable. It's not safe even. So to be safe, you have to be really relaxed, and relaxed completely is what we're talking about, which is just doing what you're doing. Just don't rock back on your heels. Don't tense your body up, and recognize what's going on with the other. Because you want as much information as possible. It's not because I want to, be you. I have to recognize what the mugger is doing and where they're coming from in order to deal with them efficiently. Not just ignore them and say that they're not a part of this. We would say that about illness. I mean, I'm not even talking about, COVID or anything. It's just, when cancer's in your body, it is in your body. You have a relationship with it. You can't ignore it and then try to just push it out of the way. You have to understand it and then work on it, right? And this is the same with people holding, or the same with, any of this stuff, right? So
I have one other thing, because Joel asked about the martial arts. And again, I'm sure as we talk more, Sensei will explain the much bigger ramifications. But one thing I also learned was, before I understood this, if I was standing up with you or someone, if I just thought I can just overpower you because I'm stronger or have better technique, I could go that route. Or maybe we're semi-even, but I could use like what they call kazushi, like trip you. Like, like kind of get your back. Like we're about even, but I'm just a little more boom and I get the. But what I learned, which is this principle of non-colliding and joining and leading, you can feel it for sure. And then when I'm back at jiu-jitsu messing around with these guys, I'm like, well, this is obvious. So I'll let Sensei explain it, but I could just say, in the meantime, if I could just show, like, if I'm just using like brute strength or technique, that's one thing. Or let's say I'm just doing a quick, kazushi, but if we're kind of locked up and Joel's pulling me this way, like in the old days, I'd be like pulling him this way. But with join and lead, I'm like, oh, we're going this way. And then like, okay, we'll go this way. And now I'm on top of you. So it's one thing to just say it, but I'm doing it with like a very good test group, these tough guys. And I'm like, this is obviously working. And that's not just like, oh, you learn a cool move and you do the kazushi like 1 out of 10 times, but it doesn't work. Like, I'm just like, this just works. If it doesn't, it's me, because I'm not joining and leading. So that was a huge thing. So I don't know if Sensei wants to talk about non-collision and join and lead, but I can tell you from a student perspective, it completely is demonstratable in the martial arts context, just because you asked that question.
Well, and every one of I love it, every one of the people that Dr. Peets brings, which I'm, sometimes a little afraid, who's that guy? Whoa, he's going to eat me, right? But they all feel it. They go, oh, yeah, I get that one. Not that they'll do it necessarily, but they understand the principle behind it. that it really is don't collide and try to find the place that you're going and help you to go there. I just don't want to be in your way. That's all.
Yes.
So, well, let's get to answering some questions, or we'll never answer the questions, right? And then we'll go back to something maybe that has to do with, oh, by the way, you know, it's not like we're hawking this book, because this book doesn't exist anymore. You can't find it. Tohei Sensei's books are no longer in print. So it's not like, you know, you got to go find them. And I usually don't know. It's nowhere. It's in Japanese. He's printing in Japanese, but you know, but not in English. And I shouldn't actually say that, because I'm always looking for them. And so if you're looking for them on Amazon and I'm looking for them on Amazon, the bid goes up. You know what I mean? So, but anyway.
We gotta join a lead.
Yeah, we got to join and lead. You buy one and buy me one. Right.
Or maybe we just go to business and make our own.
We can repeat it. We can do that. We can reprint. Absolutely. You know, I have a good connection. The person who's in charge of Key Society these days, and then we can go into some historical things if you want, is the son of Tohei Sensei, Shinichi Tohei, right? And I changed his diapers. So, you know, we're buddies in that. I'm his uncle. Yeah. So if I need to do it, you know, we can work out something that we can reprint it. Because Tohei Sensei's books are better than any books that any of us can write.
Wow.
So we just need those.
That's a huge statement to make. So that's
I can't write anything better than him. I mean, I can teach it maybe more applicable to you than he taught it to me, right? But I can't write a better book than he wrote.
Why is that? What was going on during that time, or what was it that made him so special that he was able to understand this, you think, in a way that, I'm just, you know, thinking what you just said. I mean, that's a huge compliment, and both of you and your backgrounds have both pretty much said the same thing. So, about him, was there something going on, or that made him have this understanding, and, you know, in a way that other people just didn't get it?
I'd say he had more of what Dr. Pete has than what I have, right? In that he saw O-sensei, he trained with O-sensei, he got really inspired, he watched him, he said, this is really a great thing, and then he tried to figure out why it was working and why it wasn't working. And many of the other people just copied the form, and they did okay, but Tohei Sensei wanted to know why this worked. And so Tohei Sensei had a few experiences that helped him. He used to do Zen meditation, for instance, at another place. And when he would come back from Zen meditation, from a weekend of Zen meditation, then nobody could throw him, and he could throw almost everybody. And then it would wear off. And then he'd go back to meditation and then come back, and then he could do it again. And the only person who could throw him was O-sensei. Then he said, well, this is important. So then he brought that in as a method. He said, oh no, we have to think about meditation and coordination and that kind of thing. And then he watched O-sensei and he said, O-sensei's never colliding with anybody. So I think that we should start teaching that part too. And so pre-war, I'd say that Tohei Sensei knew these philosophically, but wasn't able to put them into daily practice. Yeah. But then he went to war, and he tried to put the philosophy into practice, and you put philosophy to practice on the streets, and you get it, right? Or you don't. Or you don't. Or it doesn't work and you're dead, right? Or whatever. Or yes, you know, in the streets it's no lab, you know, it's like do or don't, right? Yeah. So he trained that way and he got it. And so when he came back, he became very quickly the chief of instruction. O-sensei made him the chief of instruction. Post-war, O-sensei retired. He went to the countryside dojo, and Tohei Sensei and O-sensei's son sort of ran the dojo. Tohei Sensei was the instructor, the best instructor, and O-sensei's son, Kisomaru, was sort of a business office manager. Also, he did Aikido. He did Aikido pretty well, right? But Tohei Sensei was teaching this way, which had something else than what O-sensei physically taught. He had this, stay relaxed, stay calm, keep your balance, don't collide, don't push against them. Well, you know the term kazushi, right? I mean, he mentioned it.
Yeah, now
right,
I do.
Right. Kazushi means bringing somebody off balance, making somebody off balance. But O-sensei's idea and Tohei Sensei's idea was this, and this is not really necessarily such a physical thing, is that if kazushi would mean me making him off balance, that's kazushi. But O-sensei and Tohei Sensei said, he's going this way, so help him to go that way, right? Yeah. And then if he's going that way and you're helping him to go that way, it doesn't matter how strong he is. But if you're trying to make him go where he doesn't want to go, then it really will matter. right?
Yeah.
Like you could maybe kazushi your employee, but you can't kazushi your boss. You could maybe kazushi some accountant, but you can't kazushi the IRS. They're much stronger than you.
Yeah.
They can take your house,
Yeah.
right? So there's always something that will overpower you. Even somebody powerful, let's say a judge, is very powerful, right? But if they're driving along Highway 80 and a brand new recruit highway patrol person says pull over, they better pull over. And if the recruit says get out of the car, they better get out of the car. Now later on, of course, that guy loses his job, and but right there, you're not more powerful than that little recruit, 19, 20-year-old recruit, even though you're a judge, right? So there's always something more powerful than you. An open mic can be really powerful, you know what I mean? Yeah. Can get you into a lot of trouble, right? So why train to overpower things then? Because there's always going to be something that's going to be more powerful than you.
I have a quick question, and I wanted to make one statement also. I mentioned what I said about my experience with the Aikido dojos before I found this. I'm sure there's like that 0.5% of people who do Aikido who are tough. Like they're probably cops and they know how to like grab fingers, and there's probably someone who exists on this earth from the Aikikai lineage who is tough. So I just didn't meet them, but they may exist. So I just want to say that. So if someone's watching and they're like, I do Aikido, I'm tough. Okay, I bet you are. Good. Okay. So with that said, I wanted to ask Sensei this question, which is, and I don't know if he wants, he might just pass on answering it, but or partially answer it or fully, but before Toei Sensei broke off and made Key Society, and he was kind of appealing to O-Sensei's son and the other people around, like, hey, we have this, what was it? I mean, we're just guessing, I guess, but what was it from the Aikikai guys' perspective that made them say, no, we don't really need to relax. We're just going to do these. Didn't they realize at some point that it was not practical, it was not working, they were missing this big element? Like, why would they resist that? I don't know.
That's a good question. It's a really good question, and I'd have to say that, my neighbor used to live right next door, who was a Berkeley PD person, and probably once a week he'd come to me and say, Sensei, this thing happened, and I did this and I did that, and then he hit me in the head, and and then he got away, so what should I do? And I said, well, is that the result that you wanted? And he'd say, absolutely not. And so I would tell him, then you did something wrong. Obviously, you can't make the other person do something, right? So you did something wrong if it's not the result that you wanted, right? So I would have to say, sorry to say this, and we don't have to edit it, right? Is that Tohei Sensei obviously did something wrong, right? Because he didn't explain it to those people where they would not take offense at it. These were people who had studied just junior to Tohei Sensei, and he would go up to them and go, boop, and push them over. Yeah. Or they couldn't throw him or something. And he would say, no, we have to do it this way. But obviously he explained it a little incorrectly because they took it bad. And they took it like, well, Tohei Sensei's just doing this thing and he's showing us up and he thinks he's the best or whatever. And so then they resisted it, right? Which is too bad, because if they'd have seen it, they'd see that he was actually doing this thing much closer to what O-Sensei was doing. And really, O-Sensei gave the only one that he gave a 10th dan to, which means that you understand this whole principle, right? Only to Tohei Sensei. There was 10th dans after O-Sensei died from committee, but O-Sensei gave Tohei Sensei the only 10th dan. So he obviously trusted him in this. But even later on in life, O-Sensei did not support Tohei Sensei as much when it got later on, because Tohei Sensei was sort of rising up in the deal, I don't know, everybody, even Tohei Sensei says, even a 1-inch worm has half an inch of ego. So you have to.
Well, there's that book, I think it's called 48 Laws of Power. I never read it, actually. It's a very famous book. But I think the first law is never outshine the master. So
right.
Maybe.
Well, you want to actually show it so that people don't. That's why I really appreciate it. Like when I'm showing these guys, the Silvas and these guys and the Gracies, that I try to approach it so it never feels like this is something better than you. This is something in addition to what you can do. And look at this, and you can do this too. And I try to do that as best I can, so that I don't make the same mistake my teacher made.
Yeah.
Because obviously, he could have kept Aikido altogether if he'd explained it in a different way. But he was young then too, so
Yeah.
he was born in 1920. So in the 40s, he was
20 something.
he was 20 something,
Well,
and
there's a lot of
then
testosterone
when he
going
got
around.
back from the war, he was 30s, and still you're in a weird thing, especially when you can do something that the others can't.
Right.
Right? Then yeah, that becomes problematic, I think. So I chalk it up to youth or something, but that's we have to say the truth, which is that obviously something was incorrect in how he described it. If he wasn't able to convince people.
And then on a side note, and again, I'm not sure how we will answer this either, but these days,
Yeah.
so someone is a 6 degree in Aikido, but they stumble across Sensei somewhere and like, wow, I heard about Ki Society, and then he's doing something simplistic like there's a thing called Tenkan. I don't know if he'll show it, but it's a thing where one of the ways to, it just means off the line, but one of the ways to demonstrate it would be if someone's just grabbing your wrist, and how would you deal with that? And he's just holding their wrist, and they can't do it after they're a 6 dan. Now I've asked Sensei this before, but I want to, if it's on film.
Yeah.
I would think if I was 6 dan in Aikido and I'm doing Aikido for 30 years, and then I can't even just freaking, this guy's holding my wrist, I'd be like, when are your classes? What's your schedule?
Right.
But it seems like a very, very, very low percentage of them do that. They're just like, oh, that's cool. Have a nice day. That just seems incredibly odd to me. I don't know if you have a more insight.
It's odd. It's odd to me too. But none of the people that I train with this is all Toei Sensei. This is not really me. Anybody can do this, right? But all the people that I expose to Toei Sensei's philosophy, especially the high-ranking Aikido, nobody says this is bunk. They don't say it doesn't work. They don't say it makes me feel bad. They just go, oh, this is really great. And then they just never come back. And I think it's because they have a place already, wherever they are. They have a place, and they feel like they have to give up that place in order to start this anew. But I try to tell all of them, your skill is great. What you have, you don't have to destroy it, or you don't have to get rid of it. Just use it, right? And use it with this, and then you'll be doubly good. It's not like it's not going to take anything away from you,
It must be a universal psychological thing, because in Kyokushin we'd have a lot of, way back in the day, they come to Kyokushin, like Shotokan black belts. Right. And we were nice to them. We weren't like and they were just like, semi-conscious or, and I thought they'd be like, I should start from scratch here. We put on a white belt,
right.
But we never saw them again. And it happened again and again and again and again.
But like when we go to like a karate thing or something, I don't have to tell anybody. Even the masters, they put on their white belt and they sit. They go, okay, let's go.
But because I did bring Sensei to Japantown to a very high level Kyokushin lineage dojo. This guy is really good. I can tell you that in many ways. He's as legit as it gets in that kind of full contact karate fighting.
Yeah.
And I told him, and he just started like with a white belt. I mean, this guy is like, no one's ever seen him in a white belt. He's like, where do I stand? Where do I line up? Because they're smart.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. He's a great guy too. Yeah, really sweet. So it's not common that people will give up their rank or their thing, to start something new. But I'm trying to help everybody understand that you don't give up anything. You're not giving up anything. You're adding something that might help you to do this thing better. It's not, you don't have to throw anything out except your ego. You might have to throw it out, right? So what they call this in Japanese training, there's many different words for training, and it has many different levels. From keiko, which is just like exercise, to the top, which we'll call shugyo. And shugyo means spiritual polishing. And if you've ever seen a stone get polished, it starts off rough, and it ends up really smooth, but at the bottom of the cage is a lot of dust, right? So the dust is your ego and your anger and all of that stuff, and so you have to shed that. And unless you shed that, we were talking about to your friends, the jiu-jitsu group, this is not going to work really well if you don't give up your anger, or if you don't give up your thrust for overpowering. It's not going to work as good. The crumbs are good enough, though, right? That's what some of these guys say. Well, the crumbs help me not to get choked, so I'm down with the crumbs, But to really understand this, to be able to do this in daily life and other circumstances, there's going to be some dust at the bottom of the cage, right? Which is, you have to drop your collision, you have to drop your ego, you have to drop your want to win,
And also you have to, from my experience, you have to trust that relaxation
Yeah.
is stronger, because it's easy to like go to class and then it's like I'm at jiu-jitsu with a very tough guy and I have to remember like I'm going to be stronger if I'm relaxed, because it's easy to be like, okay, well, this is this guy. And
This
then
is
you get
different.
that, and
This
then-
is
and then-
different,
and then,
right?
And then you get crushed. And I found that I'm not, there's plenty of room for improvement that I have in this, but I'm good at that. Like even at the toughest guys, I stay relaxed.
Right.
I still might lose,
Right.
but I do a lot better than I would have, or I do even better. And I just am like, I've resigned myself to, I am stronger when I'm relaxed, and I'm relaxed in the proper way, or as good as I can, and the results are tangible.
Well, with more positive reinforcement, positive experiences, that's when it's in your tool bag. Everything stays in your tool bag, by the way. Your anger, your frustration, your collision is still in the tool bag. But if you don't use it a lot, that stuff goes to the bottom of the tool bag, and at the top of the tool bag is relax and coordinate. So when you reach for something in a rush, you're going to get the good stuff instead of having to dig. You can still, by the way, dig and find that anger. I mean, it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there. We all have the capacity to do any of that, right? It's still in your bag, but it's not near the top. And so what we're trying to do is to change that paradigm of push, shove, right, to push, embrace.
Yeah, and it seems like even the more I'm hearing you talk, it's not just a martial art or a physical thing. It's really a way of being and really a mental shift too, and how you can carry all these principles into your daily life and relationships. And I'm assuming too, Pete, that's probably how you even bring it up into your practice and how you teach other practitioners.
Two things about that, and I've told Sensei this before. First of all, this says key in daily life, so that's the title of the book. So, I mean, obviously the author agreed with you, because that's what he called the book. For healing, I look at it like this, and I've said this before. Like, look, Dr. Thurman Fleet, who some people know, is kind of like my mentor's mentor. I think he's one of the greatest healers that we have like record of. I mean, his results prove it. And he didn't know this stuff, so obviously you can be a great healer and not be familiar with this, at least in this context. With that said, do I think understanding this can make someone a much better healer? Yeah. So that's one of the reasons I have Sensei come to the Zone School events, the higher level events, and teach.
Yeah. One of the things also I noticed when I was doing just the last exercise we did, and I was trying to push Pete, and he was staying very relaxed, is I became extremely tense. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. If that's kind of what happens, is that the other person is trying so hard.
Two things happen.
Yeah.
One thing is that you end up not pushing effectively because you're not supported by what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you stop pushing effectively. I noticed that, and I wanted to talk to you about that, right? Is that some of the jiu-jitsu guys, at least in the beginning, they couldn't bend my arm if I was tight because they weren't efficiently trying to bend my arm.
Right,
I know they
like
can.
right.
I know they can do it, right? And I said bend, and I'm going, well, this guy's not even bending my arm.
Because that's a very like unfamiliar, because
Yeah.
they're trying to bend it this way
Right,
to
right.
break it. So
Yeah.
they're like, oh, bend it this way. They have to process
So
that for a while.
so it does change how the person reacts. Now, in the beginning, it might change. You try harder and less efficient to do whatever it is, to bend the arm or something, or to hurt somebody or take them over. But after a short period of time, you change into relaxed. So here's another example of that, right? Two hands hold, here and here, right? And what I want you to do is to squeeze down as hard as you can, right? So I'm resisting you like this, so you feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. So you're squeezing as hard as you can? Yeah, good. Okay, so let go. And now squeeze as hard as you can. Now squeeze a little harder. See, you have more left. And now squeeze a little harder. You have more left. Yep. So basically, you didn't squeeze as hard as you thought. Right? And you change that. Now, this is something that I told Sensei about this, right? Because this happened. I guess Sensei, Masoyama, the head of Kyokushin, the founder of Kyokushin, right, went to see Tohei Sensei. He's a little younger than Tohei Sensei because he heard about Tohei Sensei and he went to see him. And so he wanted to test him. So he purposefully tried to squish Tohei Sensei's hand in a handshake. So try to squish it. So Tohei Sensei just stayed relaxed and said, "You're a very strong boy." "You're a very strong boy." And so Masayama really loved him and respected him enough so that when I went to Japan the first time and I went to a Kyokushin thing because one of my friends was there, and they found out that I studied with Tohei Sensei. They put me up on the dais, and had me like kind of judge, So because he really loved Tohei Sensei, he thought Tohei Sensei, that was a reaction he loved, as opposed to any other kind of reaction.
Sensei, can you show? I think it'd be very worthwhile for this interview, and maybe show them the 4 principles. I think you touched on a few. You mentioned one point, but I think weight on underside and everything else.
Right.
Explaining them they go a long way. It helped me a lot when I read the book.
Okay. So here, like one of the principles we call it ki is extending. We used to call it extend ki, but extend ki was like a verb, like you had to do something, right? And this is just ki is extending. It's already extending. So because ki is extending, this becomes very stable. So that's one of the principles, is ki is extending. The other one is keep one point, which is your center. And the way that we find one point is by coming up off your heels lightly and come down light. So you can see that he's slightly forward, right? If you go back to your heels, just even lightly, go back to your heels, right? Then it's easy to push you over. And if you keep with that forward, come up and come down just slightly forward, right? Right, then you become much more stable, and you can feel it. It's nobody disputes this, right? So this is, we call keep one point. So the one point is, I don't know, in martial arts they talk about tanjian or tanden, or this thing which actually had an idea of it being a surface, like a thing.
Or hara, right?
Yeah, or hara, right? But people have that's so finite. And Tohei Sensei said, it's not finite, it's infinite. So he said, let's think about it like a point, like it gets ever smaller and smaller, it never reaches zero, smaller, more concentrated, more concentrated, more concentrated, and that can go forever. Whereas a place is just a place, right? So it's slightly in front of you. If you just relax your feet and relax your heels, then this is a posture of one point. We call it a posture of one point. And again, just slightly back on your heels, right? And that's not a posture of one point.
No.
Right.
I feel my
Right, you can feel it. Now, it doesn't mean that if you put your weight on your heels that you're going to lose balance, because you can keep one point and put your weight on your heels, but it's not as easy.
Yeah.
Right? So those are two. That's extend ki and keep one point. The other is relax completely. And relax completely means just what you're doing now. Right? And so we'll do that as we can do it here. Right. So I want you to come over. Can you take this? Right. So right hand, like you're writing. Okay. So, come over here and you can hold his wrist.
Yeah, got it.
Right. Right. And so write gibberish, just nothing. Right. Do it again. Write gibberish. Right. And now write the most important word to you, whatever it is.
Okay.
Right. So what changed? I mean, you know what I mean? All that changed was
focus and tension.
focus or not, right? Focus or not. And it was a very different thing. One would just went up, and one you could still write, when even when he's lifting. So this is really relaxed. That's really relaxed.
Yeah.
The other one was limp, or we would call it, you were saying, I don't know what to call it. Tohei Sensei calls it losing power. Limp is losing power. It's not paying attention. It's just letting things fly over you and letting them move you around. There's a term in Japanese called ronin. Ronin. And ronin is sort of like, Toshiro Mifune, the masterless samurai, runs around, or the guy in the baby cart. You don't have a master, and you're just running.
You always hear these popular movies like The Ronin.
Right.
Is that what it is?
Right.
Thing? Okay.
Yeah. So ronin means wave person. Ronin. It means that you're tossed about by circumstances of life. So that's not stable.
It's not a compliment.
No, it's not.
People use it now. It almost seems like he's a rebel.
Well, actually, what ronin means in Japan now is the time between high school and college, when you're not going to college yet. You're a ronin. I mean, you haven't decided what you're going to do, and you're just floating around waiting for some opportunity or something. So it's not really a compliment, although we all wanted to be Toshiro Mifune when we were in the samurai days. So it's relax completely, keep one point. Weight on the underside means calmness. So if you look at, well, I wouldn't bring up Lake Tahoe these days since it's all full of smoke, right? But if you look at Lake Tahoe, it's very calm, and you can see that it's deep. You can feel that it's deep. You can feel the depth of that. So weight on the underside would be this. Offer your hand like this, And just relax like you're shaking hands. Right. Okay. And first think on this line. Right. And then, of course, this goes up. And then relax your arm and think on this line. Think of everything is on this line. So the weight is settling down. So what my teacher would say is if, you could be stable, you're going to be the uke in this one. If I can, no, this right. Let's just stay here. If I can keep weight on, if I'm keeping weight on the upper side, I won't be able to move you really easily. But if I keep weight on the underside, then of course I could down you.
Do that again. Do it again. Do it again.
Right? And so if I can down you this way, then we can walk off into the sunset, right? You know, so then do we need to do a block like this if you can down like this? So therefore, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to do this. You can just do this and you have more time to stop whatever's happening. You know, for instance, well, hard to say this because it's a police thing, and I try to teach the cops in this one too. You know, there should be something.
Tough group of people, by the way. They're very stubborn in their own
Oh,
ways.
you bet.
They think they know everything and anything. Can't teach them anything new. And so, before you even say that, I'm always thinking about what you're talking about, Toishi, and trying to get the Key Society to, or not the Key Society.
The Aikikai, right? The Aikido
yeah.
people to understand this.
And
It
I
ain't
can see
that easy. It's not that easy.
It's not easy.
So for instance, I think in the training manual should be, if you come upon a scene that somebody has a weapon, like a gun, take cover first.
That's a good idea.
But they don't have that, right?
They teach that.
But nobody does it. They
Nobody does
approach
it.
like this,
Yeah.
and then when you move, I have to shoot you. But if I'm in cover, then you could move and I can wait till I see you doing the actual movement to recognize that it was a sandwich or that it was a telephone or that, you know, it was a toy. You know, you have time if you're covered. But if you're not covered, I understand why if somebody moves fast and you tell them to drop it, you got to drop them, right? But if you were covered first, then you wouldn't have to, you would not have to do that. So even something simple like that could prevent a lot of accidents. Because I know it, even the most hardened officer doesn't want to shoot somebody. I mean, even if you're really crazy and you really don't mind shooting people, you don't like the litigation.
No.
Right? You know, I mean, there's all negative parts of that. So if you approach that way, I think that even something simple like that would help people not get into that kind of a problem, that you don't have to react to that. There was a Berkeley PD, one of my students, a Berkeley PD guy, who approached a scene, this is maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago, who approached the scene and the guy had a chainsaw and it was running and he was swinging. And so what the officer did was tell everybody to back off, and then the guy started approaching him and he backed off about 3 blocks. Drew his gun, but backed off about 3 blocks. The chainsaw stalls. He goes up, he takes it away, he hooks him up and drags him off. Now, all of his buddies said, no, that was the perfect opportunity. You should have iced him. You should have shot him, right? And he says he thanks the training every day because he sees that guy all the time.
Yeah.
And he didn't, you know, you can do that if you choose to do that. But if you don't, yeah, I would say that, yeah, if you don't feel like you can withdraw, yeah, you gotta, you know, you're not gonna get cut up by a chainsaw. Right. But if you look at the thing more calmly, you can see it better, right? And then you can make the better decision. So these are the principles of what we train, right? And we train them, not that you have to know them. This is one of the seniors in our dojo came in our system came into the dojo, and he looks, and we usually have these things, the 4 principles on the wall, Tohei Sensei's picture, you know, and a key sign up there, and he says we should take those down, put them in the garbage. And I went, oh damn, like what's he talking about, right? And he says because people think because they're up there that you're doing them. You think that you're holding a Bible, that means you're pious. You think you're, you know, ridiculous, you know, rather that you not have the book and you do the stuff. That's much better. Then you're a living Bible, or you're a living theory instead of, you know, a written theory. So, I mean, hopefully people will recognize that a little more, and that's the goal. Yeah. That's the goal here. So more questions or?
Oh man, I probably got a whole bunch more.
You know, while you're thinking, I read, it was actually a Tai Chi book, but it doesn't matter. And it was a pretty cool part. The author of the book was studying with this legendary Tai Chi guy, you know, Chen Ming.
Yeah, Chen Ming.
And his life, the guy's student's life was falling apart. He was so upset. And he went to the teacher, I don't think he spoke English. It was a translator. And he told him this like harrowing, 15-minute tale of, he was ready to kill himself. And the teacher goes, just relax. And he said when he left, he's like, man, what kind of, like, that's the most horrible advice, And he said, when he wrote the book later, he realized that what good advice it was. And it just brings me back to what I said before. And of course, we're talking about relax completely. It's a little different. But this principle of relaxation, you hear it all the time. I mean, Gurdjieff, who was a famous metaphysician, he used to tell people to look at like their tension in their body, because Gurdjieff said it's a lot easier to get energy, with like air and food and sleep. But people are dissipating energy all day because they're tense. So even Gurdjieff knew, and Dr. Fleet talked about it too, same thing. So like a lot of smart people have figured this out, and you can't pass by that. Like that, the proper relaxation goes a long, 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 long way in multiple ways.
Well, a great segue. Great segue. Tohei Sensei was giving an interview, and people always ask him when he's giving an interview, they're always asking about Sensei, right? And so after a while, years and years, Tohei Sensei's like, what am I, shop liver? I mean, I got my own system, man. What are you talking about, right? So the guy's asking him, some interviewer's asking him, and says, well, what is the most important things that Sensei ever taught you? And Tohei Sensei's a little pissed, right? So he goes, the only thing that Sensei ever taught me of any value was how to relax. And the guy is like livid because he's an Aikikai guy. He goes like, how could you say that? That's so disrespectful. And Tohei Sensei looks at him and he says, do you know how to relax? It's not something little. It's something huge. It's not a little thing. It's like huge thing. It's the only thing. It's the master thing. And so that's how people view this thing. Yeah, I can relax. No, you can't. You can relax under certain circumstances, but you can't relax under others. You can relax when you're in power, or when you think you can control the situation. Then you can sort of use relaxation because you feel comfortable, about doing it. But try to do that when you're not in the upper hand. Try to do that when you're in the lower hand. When you're, well, I guess I could say this. I was looking, because it's true, I was looking at, maybe it might have even been one of your interviews, so sorry if it is, right? But one of the jiu-jitsu masters was saying that he matched somebody and the guy had already done 3 fights or something, and he had his eye bunked out or something. So he wasn't in good shape. And so the master, the other guy said, well, yeah, they said, well, take him out, now's a good time. And he said, no. I think I'll just play it like normal, because the guy has got his eye poked out, and that's a really good thing. And everybody said, oh, what a wonderful thing. He didn't take advantage of it. But would he have done that if the guy was in perfect shape and was ready to rock and roll? Maybe not. Probably not, right? Yeah. And so it's not whether you can do that when you're in a more powerful position, but whether you can do that when you're in an underdog position, too. Whether you can stay relaxed when you're in the underdog position, not when you're in the most powerful position. So can you stay relaxed when your wife says, we're going here? You're in the underdog position, baby. So can you say, okay, or relax and not even fight yourself? Say, it's okay, I can do it this way, right? Or not, right? Then when you're in the upper position where you can just say, your kids, we're going. Right? We're going.
Well, it's funny you say that, because this whole time I was thinking, I was like, when this interview's over, I'm going to ask you that I think we should go write a book on marriage and raising kids.
I teach a lot of that.
Do you?
I do counseling a lot of in my Zen. I'm a Zen priest too, by the way, just on the side, right?
Okay.
But I don't do that as a job, so I don't really mention that much. Yeah. But in that capacity, I do a lot of counseling, and I have counseled many a couple, right, in that one, to see how you deal with kids, and do you see it from their perspective, and do you warn them when you're going to move, you're going to go somewhere, or do you spring it on them in the morning, hey, we're going to grandma's, and then you wonder how come it takes them so long to get ready, right, instead of saying in the night before, hey, we're going to grandma's at 8 in the morning, so get it together. We don't think about it that way, right? We don't think about it what they're thinking about. When I was teaching in jail, we were teaching some couples in jail, or some parents in jail, parenting, right? And I said, look, if you're looking at your kid and you're talking to them and they're doing this, you're doing something wrong. Yeah. They're not going to listen to you. They're just going, whatever, right? So you have to look at them and see how they're reacting in order to get your message across, because isn't that what you want, to get your message across? But of course, many times it's not. Many times you just want your way, right? And so you can force your way, but not all the time. Like you can train you can train an attack dog with power, with pepper and with beatings and stuff, and you can train them to do certain things, but don't fall asleep. You know, because they're going to bite your face off, or don't leave the door open because maybe they're just going to take off. But if you train them with love, then you can fall asleep, you can leave the door open, and they'll protect you. With their life, they'll protect you. Yeah. So how we train things, we can get along with it, but do we want to? Like we were talking about physical, you know. Sure, you could maybe use an overpowering movement, but you're doing experiments now. So you're going, well, let me see if I can do it this way. Even people you can normally take off, you know, you just, and that's the time when you can really do experimentation. You know, you can go, well, I can take this guy anyway, so let me see if I can do it with relaxation. And that's not a bad thing to do, right? But trying to do that when you can't take them, when they're stronger than you, which you are also doing, you know, because I think I mentioned it before, sometimes just play defense. Yeah. Don't do any offense at all, just do defense and then see how you fare, you know, and you'll learn a lot from doing that. You know, you'll learn that you are going on the offense a lot. By the way, you go, can't do that, right? Just play defense, right? This is my couples counseling as well as my jiu-jitsu counseling. Just play defense.
I'm telling you, we need to have like a branded martial art, like a Aikido.
Aikido for couples, right?
Yeah. But I mean, everything you were saying, I was thinking about just being a parent and raising my own kid, and they're joining in the collision.
Right.
I noticed my 7-year-old, him and I will collide a lot.
Right.
I was just thinking about like, oh man, there's probably so many ways I could be more relaxed in my approach.
Absolutely.
And getting more compliance from that relaxed approach.
Because what is it that you want? What is it the result you want? And if you're not getting the result, you're doing something wrong. That's all I can say, you know. Because the only thing you can
results don't lie.
Because the only thing you can control is you anyway, you know. So
yeah, I love that. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, and then there's a couple of other questions I have, but there's one thing, and I don't know if we want to do it now, but you were talking about it, and I remember seeing the video at one of the zone seminars, is you had, I think, someone pinned to the ground, and I think you said, try to get up, and nobody can get up, and even you were saying, you're like, you have to try this. I want to experiment with this.
Sure. Now, I wouldn't say, like, there's no, no, we can do it right here. There's no ultimate, right? It's not like, you can't get up, right? You know, I mean, if life depended upon it and I didn't care much, I bet you could, you know, I bet you could get up. But it's the comparative that we're talking about, like experiment, right? We're comparing, can you get up better this way? Can you get up better? And most of the time, unless they're trying to hurt me, they still understand that this way of pinning is different than trying to hold somebody down. So you want to try it?
Yeah.
You're probably going to have to take off your guy. You want to do it?
Shoot, whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, you can do the pin.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I love to have my students demonstrate. Right. So you're going to come here. Over this. Yeah, that's fine. And come this way and kneel down and get close to him. Right. And so first I want you to push down on him, and then you're going to try to get up.
He's really trying to get up.
You're really trying. Right. So you can do certain thing, right? A certain kind of movement, right? And so now I want you to really keep weight on the other side, 1 point. You can touch here, here, here anyway, so you don't hurt your fingers either, right? And then just keep 1 point and keep yourself stable. Okay, now jump up. So indeed, what I see is that ultimately you don't want to jump up anymore. And it's not because it hurts, it's just because it ain't working.
It ain't working.
Right. So when we're pinning somebody, let's say as a policeman, if I hold you down hard, if you're a fighter, you're gonna keep wanting to get up.
Right.
Right? But if you hold him down soft, like he's holding, and you can move if he moves, right? Okay, go.
You can see if you go back to square one where I'm really trying. Now I'm just trying to hold you down.
Yep.
Like I'm just using strength.
Go.
You're really trying to get up.
Right. So that's a totally different reaction from you as well, and a totally different reaction from him.
Yeah.
So that's the pin that I teach.
Yeah.
And so it's not like whether I can pin you, you know, if you're going to continue on for the rest of, you're flipping over or something like that. But it's, how it makes you feel.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Okay. That was great. Thanks.
You're welcome. Now he's tired. Now you got your workout for the
Oh, I
day.
feel good, yeah. So I'm curious, with all this stuff, all this knowledge and everything that what what are some things that you're doing right now? That are there any like projects or anything that you're exciting that you're working on, or other ways that you're trying to bring all this knowledge?
Well, it's hard. It's hard in this environment, right, to do it, because what I'd really like to do is to get back to the jails, only because that's the least served area. Now, some people get mad at me. They say, "Well, you should be handling the victims of these folks," and I do that too. But these guys are going to get out. So, do you want them worse,
Right.
or do you want them better? I want them in my dojo. I don't want them in my backyard. You know what I mean? Where my wife would have to shoot you, is what I tell them. And they laugh, and I go, "No, if you come into my backyard, my wife is going to shoot you." Right? That's the way. Seriously, that's the way that goes, right? So I want to get back to the jails, and so if anybody seeing this can help me get back into the jails, at least locally in the Bay Area, but any jail is fine, right? Because the effect of that is really far-reaching. To train somebody to understand that relaxation is your strength, that you don't have to prove anything, that you don't have to push your issue, that you can see it from other people's perspectives. And to tell you the truth, some of my best students come from the jail. This comedy relief. I saw my first person, it must have been 12, maybe 15 years ago. I saw my first guy out that I knew in the jail, right?
Wow.
And so I was eating Chinese food, and a bunch of cholos come in, and they looked like cholos. They had the shirts, the white shirts, and the tan pants, and the button, and everything, right? And so they were all bald and tatted up. And they came in, and I thought, oh crap, what's going to happen? And then they were just ordering Chinese food. That's what they were doing. So they ordered it, and in the crowd, I heard, "Sensei, Sensei," and I look around and I go, "Oh shit, that's Jose. Uh-oh. Do we have anything on that he can recognize me going home?" But I said, "Hi, Jose." He said, "Remember me?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. When'd you get out?" I didn't think you were getting out. I didn't say that. But so then they ordered their meal and they went outside, and then we finished our meal, and I was with my little kid and my wife, and so we walked out, and out of the crowd, the guy said, "Thanks, Sensei, because Jose is much better now than when he went in. He's a much calmer guy. Thanks a lot." So, this is a very big effect that can have on society too.
Yeah.
Much bigger. I mean, it's a good effect to have on law enforcement. It's a good effect to have on criminals, because those are sort of, actually they're probably like this. They're not really the ends of the spectrum, right? But it really will help both situations out if everybody stays calmer and relaxed and recognizes that relaxation is strong. It's not weak at all. It's very, very strong. It's stronger than tension. And so once we recognize that from a practice viewpoint, then we can put it into daily life.
Yeah, huge. I have a couple more questions, like lightning round kind of questions that I usually ask.
Sure.
But before I do that, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had? And then Pete, maybe there's even something that you're like, you know what? There's one thing I don't
Pete would know more than me.
enough on, or that might be valuable.
I think we covered a lot of great stuff, actually. If you want to go to your lightning round.
Okay. If something pops up, you cut me off. What are some choices you think you made in your life that made you who you are today?
Well, actually, all the choices I made in my life made me who I am today, right? And I sometimes I look back and say, I should have done this, I should have done this, but I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with, of course we could always do better, but I'm pretty happy with where I am. So obviously the choices I made, put me here, right? Yeah. My wife was saying, I was going to get into that high school and I didn't get into it. And I go, well, if you went to that high school, I might never have met you. So good that you went into that one, and, and we met each other. So yeah, I think the choices were just to, groove along with what's happening. And if I felt really strong about it, I did it. And of course I probably made a few mistakes, but here I am. And I really, I like what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm very happy.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Who, obviously you're such a force to be reckoned with. Who?
Oh no.
Who?
Oh no.
Or you're such a positive force.
Okay.
That
I'm positive.
in a good way. Who inspires you, or is there anybody that I mean, all the teachers that you've had, is there anybody that besides Koichi Tohei that you think about, or?
Well, all the people who have taught me from the Zen side, Tanoi Roshi in Zen, Omori Sogen in Zen, Suhara Koen, who taught me Kyudo, taught me archery in Zen. That really, helped me a lot. William Lay, who was a body worker, was a student of Moshe Feldenkrais and a student of Ida Rolf, direct student of both of those, and developed a system that really helped me a lot. But all of those really, I mean, just honestly, all of them pale. Tohei Sensei really molded me in a way that that was so big. And also, Tohei Sensei, even though he usually says, you should just do this, he allowed me to do Zen at the same time because he found that when I came back from Zen, I was improved. So he said, whatever's happening over there is good. So just, you can keep going over there, right? And Tanoi Roshi the same. Although Tanoi Roshi said something once, we were doing something, he's a martial artist too and a Zen person. So we were doing something and he says, yeah, you Aikido guy, I can throw something at you. You get out of the way. I grab your wrist and you throw. So why do you need this Aikido? You can already do that. Just study Zen. Yeah. And I said, yeah, but without that, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't be able to do that stuff without training that. So that's why I continued to do Zen. And then he said, yeah, I can throw all this martial arts at you, but if I throw a Mercedes your way, you're in trouble, right? And then I went, no, Sensei, I like BMWs. I like BMWs, right? I'm not attached. I like BMWs instead. So he understood where my stupidity lied. When I first met him, I had a mustache and a goatee, and he looked at me and he said, "What are you hiding behind that?" And I went, "I'm not hiding anything." And he said, "You're attached to that." And I go, "No, I'm not." So I go in the dressing room and I shave it off and I come out and I go, "Yeah, I was." Yeah, I was, but I stopped doing it, Yeah. But yeah, I was.
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
So yeah, Tohei Sensei, I can't say anybody, higher than him, in terms of the effect on me. Still today, even he died in 2011, but still, still today I can, because he left us with a theory that you can constantly check and test yourself on. It's not just a theory that you can spout whatever you want. God talks to me, so I can say what I want. Yeah, right. How are we going to check that? There's a joke about the student falls asleep and the teacher falls asleep and the student says, "Hey, you can't fall asleep. You're a teacher." And the teacher says, "Well, I was communing with God." And so then the student falls asleep and the teacher says, "Hey, wake up, what were you doing?" He says, "Well, I was communing with God," and he says he hasn't seen you in a long time, right? So you could say anything you want with that, but this is sort of provable. You proved it right now. Relaxation was much stronger than tension was, and I can prove it to that way or show my mistakes every day, right? Even though Tohei Sensei's not with us.
Yeah. Oh. Awesome. Any big books that heavily impacted your life? I'm a big reader. Is there any books other than some of the ones we've highlighted already today?
I'm not a big reader. My father wanted me a big reader. He was a self-taught, sort of a working class. I'm a red baby, red diaper baby, So he was a self-taught unionist, and we had books all over the house, and he tried to get me to read, and I never got into it, right? The only books I could recommend is anything by Tohei Sensei.
Perfect.
Anything by Tohei Sensei, but don't buy them all up, and if you buy them, buy two of them and send me one. Buy two of them and send me one.
Any rituals or practices that you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, lots. I do a breathing exercise, long breathing every day. I do meditation every day. Lately, I teach every day, sometimes twice a day, 3 times a day. Lately, since my student gave me a sauna, I take a sauna every day.
Nice.
They just gave me that sauna over there. Right.
Oh, Clearlight, they're in Berkeley.
That's what your brother was saying, that you just interviewed. And the person who gave me that bought it directly from the doctor because she knew him somehow, right? And then, so she hadn't been using it, and I've been complaining because I belong to a health club, and they've been closed. Yeah. And the only reason I joined the health club was for the sauna, because economically it was best, right? And they opened up everything but the sauna, which kills all of the bacteria. So I don't.
Death going on.
A lot of death going in the sauna. So I don't understand it. But so I was kvetching to this student of mine, and so she said, "Well, I haven't used this in 6 months. So do you want it?" So I got it, and I used it, and the second day after I used it, it just died.
Oh no!
And so I called up the company. It's not warranted. I'm the second owner, right? I called up the company. I didn't get any response, and then the last text I mentioned the doctor's name. Yeah. Oh, I think he's the one who sold it to us. And an hour later, you get a call. There's a workman coming over to visit your house, and and they brought a whole new insides. And the guy, I said, "Well, how much?" Because I was willing to pay. I got this for free. And they went, "No, bye-bye."
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I do a sauna every day.
Very cool. I'm glad they took care of you. That was the right thing to do.
It was the right thing to do, and I'm very happy too. Yeah. Nice. I like to sweat.
Yeah. Last but not least, where can people find you?
Well, this is an interesting thing because if no, somehow there is that, right? Because in headquarters, I always, when we had meetings, because I worked my way through attrition to being on sort of general staff, right? When we had meetings, I would say, "Sensei, we have to shrink. We have to make ourselves smaller." And he goes, "Are you crazy? We got to get bigger." No, we got to shrink. We have to have smaller classes so that everybody understands what we're doing and we can check them and, constantly, because seminars don't do it. You can't check everybody. And so what are they leaving with, So in a certain sense, it's up the stairs, down an alley, in the thing, a little sign. But there is something to be said because, like, if Dr. Pete, who's a very smart guy, could not find the senior direct student of Tohei Sensei, and he was looking, then obviously I ain't out there enough, right? Yeah. But we do have web pages, right? And one web page is keyaikido.org, and the other one is keyonline.org. So both of those, you can get to us. Yeah.
Awesome. And the thing I was thinking is, if just like the way you found your teacher, you did whatever it took you were willing to speak Japanese and you knew nothing. If people really want to find you, they'll figure out a way, just the way like Pete found you.
Well, I figure quality over quantity. Really. But also there's the touch people just like with a workshop, or touch people with just a little thing. One workshop can help somebody change something. One workshop in the jail can help that person change how they're. If you go online, there's a little thing about the jail program, and some of the the things that those guys say is just heart-wrenching. About how, oh man, I didn't realize that this could, that I could be relaxed and I could really do things that I want to do, and it's just amazing. So so even workshops or something like that is always really good. I do it for corporate. I do it for for anybody. Jails, police. When they want it, when they want it, when they want it, right? So yeah. So I mean that's how you can get me. Cool. Through us.
Sensei Maida, Dr. Pete, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Hack Life, and if you did, please share this episode on social media and then tag me at Joel Levin Coaching. And don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating so that you don't miss any other great episodes. We can only spread our message when you share this knowledge with others that need it. Thanks a ton, guys, for the support.